Welcome in, it's Chuck. Appreciate you so much for joining me. Penn State General Manager Pat Kraft, a former Penn State football player, a guy who was pretty well respected heading into this season. Penn State was obviously all in, right? They'd upped the money. They'd given James Franklin everything he needed, went out and got the wide receivers that he needed. They paid money to keep guys from going into the draft, and it was their all-in year. Big money for offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki, who, look, the guy sucks. I always said he sucked, and people just love to say his name and sound smart and cool. Kotelnicki sucks. Boy, did he show it this year. They bring in Jim Knowles, outbid Ohio State and Oklahoma to bring him in, the highest paid DC in the country. And at the head of all these moves was Pat Kraft, a guy that James Franklin seemed to be on the same page with. They rocked together. There was total alignment. James Franklin talked about it nonstop in the offseason, said he had the best team he's ever had. This was their shot, man. They were all in. They wanted to do what they saw Michigan do in 23 and Ohio State do in 24, and Penn State was going to replicate it. And then, of course, we saw Penn State fall apart. One of the most historic collapses we've ever seen. And when we look back now at how this is all unfolded, when we look back after that Northwestern game, so Penn State starts off with 3 cream puffs, don't particularly play too well. They're not throwing the ball downfield. Penn State fans are hoping, look, they're saving things, right? They're saving it. Did not seem likely to me, but then you have the big showdown, the massive game against Oregon that they just poured everything in all offseason. The whiteout against Oregon was the proving ground. If we're going to win the national championship, like, this is our measuring stick right here. This game against Oregon, another opportunity at a big game. Everybody in the country watching, our home field, a whiteout, cannot lose this game. Not only do they lose it, they're down. They come back to overtime, lose it in heartbreaking fashion, just like last year with a boneheaded Drew Aller, their senior now quarterback, interception, and it's over. And when that happened, this team, we've never seen a mental collapse like it. Never seen it. They go out to UCLA and lose to UCLA. And it was just like, okay, horrible loss, horrible look. That's 2 Big Ten losses. However, they've only got one more difficult game on the schedule after that. That's Indiana, and it's at home. They can still run to the table, make things right, make it to the playoffs. All the goals are still out in front of them. Then they come home the following game at home and lose to Northwestern. And that game, we could really see on full display that the team had totally quit on James Franklin. And now they're sitting on 3 losses. Now all the goals are gone. And it was just a feeling. I mean, it was amazing on the outside looking in. It was like totally unacceptable from James Franklin. But that day, when he came off the field at Northwestern, and look, hindsight will maybe forget this part as Pat Kraft is now getting cooked for firing him. They've got it set up in Penn State where you walk through this tunnel and the fans are lined up on either side. Now, James walks off the field often with his daughter, or daughters, plural. I don't know how old they are, maybe like 17 to 20, or maybe even younger. But he's walking off with his daughter. Before he hits the tunnel, he sends her ahead because he knows what's going to happen when he walks in this tunnel. And when he walked in the tunnel and walked through the fans, there was so much vitriol. It was so nasty. It was uncomfortable for me to watch. And I said on the show the next day, like, it felt like if there were rocks around, people would have started chucking rocks at him. I mean, it was just like, this is a human being. We're talking about football. I get it. Massive screw up, totally unacceptable. But man, then he walks into the press conference and it got even worse as he is asked point blank in the press conference, do you want to be the head coach of Penn State? And his answer was not, I absolutely do, or yes, I am, and I will continue to be. He turned it into, oh, it's about the guys in the locker room and blah, 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 blah. Now, if I'm the AD, you have just failed this miserably. You blew up the whole season and your team quit on you after I just went and worked all the donors all offseason to get you everything you asked for. You blew it up. Your team quit. And when you are asked in that press conference, do you want to be the head coach of Penn State? And you answer that question with a runaround answer, well, now you've quit on me. Now you quit on me too. And at that point, if I'm Pat Kraft, I'm right with him. 100%. The situation is now untenable, and the guy won't even say, I want to be the head coach here. Get him out. Get him out, get him out, get him out. That's how I was feeling at the time. And that's what he did. Now, we've watched it unfold, obviously, James, we didn't expect Penn State to be coachless for so long. So James was able to go to Virginia Tech, pluck 10 of his commitments at Penn State, bring them to Virginia Tech, momentum at Virginia Tech, right? He even had coach. Now, what Kraft did was just horrible. He had guys on the coaching staff, like Phil Troutwine, telling guys like Kevin Brown to go look somewhere else, like pushing them out. And Kraft himself, you're not going to believe this one. So Jackson Ford, who is one of the 2 commitments that ended up signing with Penn State in this class, a top 300 edge rusher who chose Penn State over Ohio State, a Pennsylvania kid, wanted to stay loyal, wanted to stay in the class. Jackson goes on record as saying that Pat Kraft, the AD, told Jackson that if they hired Terry Smith, that's the interim head coach, that he's got a spot on the team. But if a new guy comes in, if they hire someone else, ultimately it'll be up to him as to whether or not Jackson Ford, a top 300 kid, has a spot. And he says this to him as they're hemorrhaging guys. And I can only assume this is what he was saying to all of them. Wasn't even guaranteeing their spots. As if the new guy would come in and say, no, I don't want these kids. Like, are you kidding me? Absolutely absurd. And that right there tells me all I need to know about this dude. In comparison, LSU in Florida, despite firing Billy Napier and Brian Franklin, were able to hold on to the bulk of their class because their AD obviously isn't a moron. And now with their new coaches, they sit LSU at 13th with 14 commitments, Florida at 16th with 18 commitments. Penn State is outside the top 100 with 2 commitments, might be outside the top 150. And LSU in Florida still got time to add and make those better. But when I heard that, I thought this guy's a stone cold idiot. And of course he is. We saw how he handled the coaching search, which seemed to start off with, it's going to be my buddy and Matt Rule, the guy he played with at Penn State. And Matt turns him down. Extension with Nebraska. Well, is it going to be Cignetti? Cignetti re-ups with Indiana, the huge contract. And this guy just went around getting everybody raises and contract extensions. And it even went all the way out to BYU, as earlier last week or this week, it was Kalani Sitake. Pat Kraft flies out to BYU. And by the way, that hire, I like Sitake, makes no sense at all. Guy's never even been to the East Coast. He's perfect for BYU. He's LDS, Polynesian, like it all fits perfectly. He gets a big deal with the Crumble Cookie CEO who steps up and helps fund this massive deal, beefs up their NIL. So you just get turned down by everybody, and it looks like just such a bumbling cluster. It's absolutely horrible. Meanwhile, Florida doesn't get Lane Kiffin. They hire the hottest G5 coach in John Sumrall. I love the hire for Florida. Their fans aren't happy. I think it's great. LSU gets their number 1 target in Lane Kiffin. Auburn gets the other hottest G5 target, a dude from Ohio, Alex Golish. I don't even think Penn State interviewed Alex Golish from USF, but Auburn got him. And I think that's just criminal by him. But a bumbling, stumbling moron, while Penn State fans were talking the entire time throughout this thing with these pie in the sky names. They started off with Freeman. Let's make Saban say no. Let's make Freeman say no. Everybody said no. They made everybody say no, apparently. And Kalen DeBoer. They thought, I argue with the guy about Kalen DeBoer. Like, the bottom line is they've got a coach now, probably, in my opinion, where they should have gone in the very first place. And that is Matt Campbell, a dude from Ohio who went to Mount Union, coached under the legendary Larry Karras, won national championships in D3, went and coached at Toledo, ended up at Iowa State, and has been there for 10 years loyal. 10 years loyal to Iowa State. Someone that's, when Urban Meyer stepped down before Ryan Day was hired, people were floating his name for the Ohio State job. Should they interview Matt Campbell? People have brought his name up for every job opening ever since because he's incredibly impressive. And when you listen to him speak, the first thing that stands out is integrity. And this is a guy you want around. He's a leader of men, perfect for that age group. And in the last 10 years, he has become the all-time winningest coach at Iowa State. Iowa State, guys. This is a program that in its existence before he got there, 120 years, had 3 bowl wins. He has 3 himself. He took the program into the top 25 as many times in his 10 years as they had been in their entire existence. And he did all this in Ames, Iowa, with no money. And what impresses me the most about him is the talent that he amassed on that roster at times. Guys that nobody else wanted, and he was able to identify and get. I'll give you an example. Milan Paris, Walsh Jesuit. I covered him. I covered him here on the show. A wide receiver, 6'5", so smooth. He had no big time offers. Iowa State was his offer. He was committed. And eventually, Miami catches on. Remember last year he had 2 NFL wide receivers get drafted. By the way, that Penn State, they would have loved to have. But consistently finding guys like Milan Paris, who then get discovered, and Milan did, by Miami, ends up at Miami, and ended up a borderline top 100 player when it was all said and done. But Matt was in on him first. And that kind of stuff happened consistently to him over and over and over. So he didn't just actually have to get his guys. He had to get like 3 times the guys that everybody else with his evaluations just to get one guy, because he would lose 2 out of every 3 that he had lined up. And that, at a time when evaluations have never been as important, is amazing. He just got cherry picked over and over. Then he would develop guys. They would get cherry picked in the portal era. And what he did, a 57% winning percentage at Iowa State, 43% the history of their program. He brings it up to 57. He had a better winning percentage against ranked opponents than Lane Kiffin does in his career. Lane Kiffin. Against the top 25. James Franklin against the top 25. 16-27 at Vandy and Penn State. And at Iowa State, Matt Campbell, 15-28. Same record against the top 25. And he's at Iowa State. Now, at Iowa State, you're generally unranked or at the very bottom of the top 25 when you're playing those ranked teams. At Penn State, James Franklin was usually in the top 10. So sometimes you're playing guys ranked ahead of you. The majority, you're going to be playing guys ranked below you. They amassed the same record. And these numbers are amazing. And there's a lot of people who have said, well, what's he done? What's he done? This guy has been so impressive that he has been offered a slew of jobs over the years. And he's been a candidate for a ton more that he hasn't been offered. But he's been on everybody's list. Everybody who knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about wants to talk to Matt Campbell. And he would never leave because all he wanted to do, many speculated at the time, number one, doesn't want to coach in the SEC, doesn't like the shenanigans. It's not what he's about. What he wanted, and he had a hard time leaving Ohio, was to come back home or into the region and get one of the big 4 jobs in the region. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, or Notre Dame. And maybe one of those jobs he would leave for. Didn't even leave for the Detroit Lions job. And he talked consistently about how hard it was to leave the state of Ohio. All the families here, all his wife's families here. And if Ohio State, if Ryan Day had retired this offseason and Ohio State was on a coaching search, Matt Campbell would be in my top 3. Like, I would want this dude. Everybody else would want somebody who's already done this or that in their career. Like, this is the guy who would do what Ryan Day has done, who would come, establish roots, give the program stability, and win at the highest level. I feel confident in that. So when an opportunity came up for him, like we've seen all 4 of those jobs come open, right? We've seen Notre Dame come open. Marcus Freeman was on staff. They moved to him. We saw Ohio State come open. Ryan Day was on staff. They go to him. Michigan came open. Sherrone Moore was on staff. They go to him. Penn State comes open. It's the first one that came open where they hired an external guy. And this was the first opportunity he had to get one of the big four in the Midwest. And Penn State got him. They got him. And I am, look, my opinion, locked in here. This is the best hire of the entire cycle. Best of the cycle. It's also the best fit. It's the best fit and it's the best hire. And it's going to take some adjusting for Matt because he's never been in a spot where he can now pick and choose things he wants. And Penn State full bore investing, ton of money for his staff. And this guy is going to be a smashing success at Penn State. Now, here's the thing. I think he's going to be a smashing success at Penn State. And what does that entail? People are saying you fired James Franklin because he couldn't get you over the top. So what you're shooting for is someone who can get you over the top. I think what you're actually shooting for is they had come to the realization that James not only could not get you to the top, but James was on the decline and his program was on the decline. And James was incredibly stubborn in the things that he did. The things with loyalty to guys who, you look at the Nick Singleton, Katron Allen thing this year. He would admit it. I was probably too loyal. He's been too loyal to guys. He was loyal to Singleton. Singleton was having a terrible year. Katron was not. Kept giving the ball to Singleton. And he's been like this throughout his career, whether it be just guys who are older, playing them instead of younger guys who are better. When it comes to NIL, he was paying the whole roster the same amount of money, which is just absurd in a terrible way, obviously, to get guys to come in the transfer portal. And when it comes to Franklin, he proved that he couldn't get over the top. So what are you looking for? You're looking for a guy, a new guy for starters, who can come in and get the program to where Franklin had it, which is a lofty goal, where Franklin had it, and get shots at the apple. Shots at the apple. Now, does it mean the next guy is going to be able to do more than Franklin? No. But can he get to where Franklin had it and get his shots at the apple? Get his shots at taking that next step? Because Franklin proved he couldn't do it. Now, it's going to be more difficult for Campbell, potentially, because the Big Ten continues to get better. I just got done with a video about Michigan State getting a $400 million donation. Pat Fitzgerald, Indiana, will they be a mainstay at the top end of the conference? Illinois just signed a top 25 class. Nebraska finished 7-5, but probably would have been better had Dylan Raiola not gone down in the middle of the USC game that they were winning. Iowa had a great season this year. Who knows what's happening there? Minnesota had a good class. You got Northwestern investing, new stadium, new facilities, and then obviously the mainstays, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. We'll do a video soon about the Big Ten and the recruiting classes, but some interesting stuff here. And there were a ton of hires this cycle. It's going to be difficult to be as good as James Franklin was in the Big Ten because the Big Ten has elevated. But Matt Campbell at Penn State, there are so many other guys out there that Penn State would have hired that would have made me happy as an Ohio State fan that I wouldn't have thought a second. Like, I wouldn't have thought, like, that guy will be better than Franklin. No, that guy will be way worse than Franklin, and I'm happy. There's just a few guys Penn State could have hired that me as an Ohio State fan would be like, yeah, that's a little concerning. I don't like that. Campbell's one of them. Like, yeah, Franklin was what he was. We all knew what he was. Campbell, it's somewhat like I see a really bright future for Penn State with Campbell. Consistency, stability. Franklin provided it. You got another guy who can do that, who we know can win, who can win against the top 25 at the same clip as Franklin can with far inferior talent. Now he gets the dogs. And just like Franklin, a good culture guy. But Franklin is a me-first culture guy. He's a me-first dude. He's a me-first guy. Always has been. This dude, players first. His goal last year was togetherness. He wanted the most togetherness team he could ever have. They asked him straight up in a press conference. You know, I know the goal at the beginning of the year was to win the Big 12. That wasn't Coach Campbell's goal. Coach Campbell's goal was to be the most together team that we've ever had here at Iowa State. It's like, he's just a different dude, man. He's a different dude, and I think he's perfect for a place like Penn State. And I think that it's going to be a smashing success. So that is where I sit on that. As far as Pat Kraft, this flipping guy's got to go. This guy's got to go, whether he lucked into this or not. And he did. He lucked into it. Now, keep in mind, this is the guy they should have called first. Should have been their first call or on their short list of first calls. And he now is claiming that he was. He was, but the message got lost in the shuffle that Penn State wanted to talk to Matt Campbell. They had the wrong number or something. They couldn't get a hold of him. So they went on for their months-long coaching search, never talking to him because they couldn't get a hold of him. Sounds likely, Kraft. I mean, what a joke this guy is. Anyway, just wanted to hit on that, obviously, as I did one for Sparty. And look, I think Pat Fitzgerald is a great hire for Michigan State. I think he fits well. They just got a $400 million donation. Like, what we're seeing is programs in the Big Ten investing a ton in football, and the conference continues to elevate and get tougher and tougher. And it's a whole different world, man, when you think about the Big Ten 5 years ago versus today. And it will continue to get better as we see things like this. Now, next up, you got some programs that need to follow suit, need to do the same thing, because there is a bigger disparity now between the top 6 programs and the bottom 6 programs than maybe there's ever been. As the top 6 programs continue, like, when you got the transfer portal, you can just go get better every single year and your team's stronger and stronger. And these guys at the bottom that don't invest in football, the Marylands who are just, we'll just keep Mike Loxley another year. Like, what are you even doing, man? What are you even doing? Rutgers. Rutgers has 2 kids from New Jersey in their recruiting class. 2 kids from the state of New Jersey, a very talent-rich state. 2 kids. That's the buzz you're able to generate at Rutgers. It's ridiculous. In an era where you've got the money to spend too. So anyway, we'll talk about that soon. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you later.